Welcome to my channel. This is a place where I tell scary stories, and this one is called the Vanishing Road. There was once a small town in the middle of nowhere. It was surrounded by rolling hills and dense woods, and it was miles away from any big city. People who lived there had lived there for generations, and nothing ever happened. Well, nothing ever happened until one night when a road appeared. It just materialized out of thin air. People woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of crunching gravel, and they looked out their window to see a brand new road being constructed. Right outside their house, the workers were dressed in clothes that looked like they'd been made 100 years ago, like they'd stepped straight out of a period drama. They didn't speak or acknowledge anyone watching them from the house. They just kept working. The road stretched all the way from the edge of town past the last house to the forest line. At the end of the road, the workers stopped, placed a sign down reading "Road Closed," piled up some rocks and set up camp for the night. Then they all went around in a circle and started singing creepy songs in an unknown language. The townspeople watched from their windows until the workers went silent and went back to their homes. No one dared leave their house that night. When the sun came up, the road was still there, but the workers were gone. Whoever they were, what they were doing, where they came from, no one knew. Everyone in town talked about the road, wondering why it was built and what it meant. Some said it was a bad omen. Others said God had brought it so he could take them away. Still others refused to believe it had anything to do with them and tried to carry on like nothing had happened. But after the second night, no one was so sure anymore. A few days after the road was built, two people from the local church decided it was foolish to worry about something they couldn't control. So they got into their car and drove out onto the road to see where it led. They drove for hours, but the road never ended. It just kept going further and further into the woods. After a while, they started to get scared. They turned around and headed back home. But the road had vanished. It was as if it had never been there at all. They weren't the only ones who disappeared. A couple of weeks later, a man who lived on the outskirts of town noticed his barn was missing. He checked the surrounding area, but it wasn't anywhere to be seen. It just disappeared, and the only evidence that it had ever stood there at all was a truck-sized divot in the road where the barn had once been parked. When he went to call the police, he found his phone had no signal and neither did any of his neighbors. His face drained of color as he realized the road wasn't just a road. It was a gateway to somewhere else, somewhere without self-service, somewhere where things were very, very wrong. More people vanished over the next few months, some young, some old, some in cars, some on foot. No one knew what was happening, why they were being taken, why they were being lured away, but most agreed it had something to do with the road. Most. A woman named Clara refused to believe it. She was a scientist who moved to the town a year ago after inheriting her grandmother's house. No one else believed her, but she believed there was a logical explanation for what was happening. So she moved into her grandmother's attic room and dedicated her life to figuring out what it was. Her room was dusty and filled with old books and journals, the kind of place a crazy old lady would live in. In fact, it was exactly the kind of place everyone thought Clara had become. She spent every day poring over ancient texts trying to find some connection to the road, some explanation for how people were disappearing. One day she came across an old legend that told the story of a trickster god who sent plagues upon the people. To avoid these plagues, the god demanded a yearly sacrifice, usually of two young maidens. If the god wasn't appeased, then the whole town would vanish and be replaced with a lake. Clara didn't believe in gods, so she dismissed the legend as superstitious nonsense, but it stuck in her mind nonetheless. That night, she dreamed of a dark road, a tall, thin man dressed in robes who beckoned to her from the end of the road. When she awoke, she felt certain the road had something to do with the disappearances. So she called the sheriff to tell him what she discovered. But when she went downstairs to use the phone, she saw something shocking. Her grandmother, who had been dead for 3 years, was sitting at the kitchen table drinking tea. At first, Clara thought she was dreaming, but when she touched her grandmother's shoulder, she felt solid flesh, not the coldness of a corpse. Her grandmother turned around and smiled, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She explained to Clara that she had been waiting for her granddaughter to come and help her stop the sacrifices. Every 300 years, the road appeared and took someone from the town, and if the tradition wasn't honored, the god would destroy the town. That was why Clara had inherited the house. Their bloodline had been chosen to keep watch over the road and make sure the sacrifices were made. Otherwise, the world would suffer. But Clara had no intention of sacrificing herself. Her grandmother told her there was no other choice. If the road was used, then someone had to be taken. The question was, did Clara want to be the one to stop the other sacrifices? For a moment, Clara was torn. She didn't believe in her grandmother's story, but maybe there was some truth to it. Maybe there was some reason why people were disappearing. Could she really let innocent people die just because she didn't want to participate in an ancient ritual? In the end, she decided she couldn't. So she got into her car and drove out onto the road. Her grandmother's warning echoed in her ears. As she reached the end of the road, she saw a hooded figure standing by the trees. The same figure from her dream. The man turned around and bowed. "You've come willingly," he said. "Very well." He gestured to the road behind her. "Will you be our sacrifice?" he asked. At that moment, Clara knew she'd made the right decision. This road, whatever it was, however it worked, it had to be stopped. But as she turned to face the man, she caught sight of her own reflection in the window of a nearby house. The reflection of a girl stepping out of a car. The girl walked toward the house and opened the door. Clara looked back at the man, but he was gone. The only sound was the wind blowing through the trees. The road was empty, and when the sun came up, it was gone. For a while, Clara waited for people to start disappearing again, but no one did. The road never reappeared, and Clara was left wondering if she had really done the right thing. Was she now cursed to walk the earth knowing she'd helped banish the evil road? Knowing she'd saved the town? Or was she doomed to wander the earth alone, rejected by her own world, destined to travel the endless roads forever and ever, searching for the one who will lead her home? Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please leave me a like and comment below with a new story idea. There are new stories every week.